Hey there folks, Ben Farrell for Benn Farrell Freelance here. This is episode 19, and this is our first part of a three-part series where we're going to be talking about the endings that will be perfect for your story. Hey there, Ben Farrell for Benn Farrell Freelance. This starts a three-part series that we're going to be doing about the best endings for your story. So there are a lot of ending options out there, and they all actually are identifiable. And what we're going to do is we're going to split up the next 3 episodes to talk about 3 ending options each. Obviously, all of us want to create the best ending possible for what we're writing, so that way our reader or our audience can have the greatest amount of satisfaction, and because of that, they'll want to read what we write next. Obviously, there are plenty of ways to end your story, and a lot of those ways will overlap at times, and we'll be giving you some examples as we go. Some endings end with a twist, some endings end with a cliffhanger. It all depends on the story, but most importantly, just make sure it's a good ending, and it's very easy to figure out if you have a good ending or not. Good ending for any story avoids deus ex machina, and that is a Latin expression that roughly translates to God from a machine. Now, as far as fiction goes, deus ex machina is a very heavy-handed and abrupt ending that ties everything together, which that can be okay. However, it does it in a way that is simply not organic or natural to the story that you've written. For instance, let's say you have a main character who's poverty-stricken, they've gone through all this adversity throughout your story, and in the end, you introduce an uncle character who has a vast fortune and hands it to them and takes care of all of their problems. Yes, it's an ending that's a surprise, and it can tie up all the loose ends, but is your reader going to be satisfied with that ending, especially from a character that you haven't introduced before? Regardless of how you end your story, what I like to do is leave just 1 or 2 clues throughout the rest of the material that possibly leads your reader or your audience to how they think it's going to end, and give them clues as to a bunch of different possibilities for its ending. Then, if you pick one, they will still be satisfied, but it's not what they expected. And still be satisfied because you've created that as an option, and it's organic, and it happens naturally. So let's dive right into the first 3 possible endings you could have for your story, and we'll break them down for you.
So the first style we're going to be going over is a happy ever after ending.
Sometimes it's called a resolved ending.
So basically, every Walt Disney movie you've ever seen has a happy ever after ending.
Even if a character dies, that's what type of ending it has.
Just about all of Shakespeare's romantic comedies end with a happily ever after. Girl gets guy, guy gets girl, doesn't always mean sex, but everything's tied up in the end and everybody's happy. Even Romeo and Juliet is a happily ever after type of ending, or a resolved ending, because everything is resolved by their suicide. So maybe it's not happy ever after, but it is ever after. Even Hansel and Gretel. Gretel pushes the witch into the oven, she's reunited with her brother, they're reunited with their father, and at least we can assume that they live happily ever after. The second ending that we're going to go over is the circular or the tied ending. And that is basically where a character is telling his tale to another character after he recognizes that his motivations match his own, and he's trying to impart the wisdom he learned by the story that he just went through. For that, I think the best example is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It starts with Dr. Frankenstein getting picked up by a sea captain who is obsessed with getting to the North Pole. So Frankenstein goes on to explain his story about his creature to the ship captain, who's obsessed with trying to get to the North Pole. Now, a story with a circular ending doesn't always have to be a main character telling his story to another character. It can be a main character going through the story and realizing it himself at the end. So he becomes more self-aware. The best example I can use for that is Fight Club. That's a movie starring Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, and after he becomes more self-aware of himself, he comes in and saves the day after the damage he actually created himself. So that's an example where the main character is creating all these problems and all this adversity for himself, and then he realizes what he's doing, and then he decides to fix everything. The last ending style we're going to go through in this episode is the implied ending or the ambiguous ending. And that's basically an ending that you've seen in a lot of Westerns where the main character is just riding off into the sunset and then the film credits roll.
I'm tired of this bully being so mean to our school.
What are we supposed to do about it?
Well, I'm gonna do something.
He's gonna cream you.
At least I'm trying.
Now, that kind of ending might be ambiguous, but it can also create assumptions that would allow our reader to be satisfied. A good example of that would be the movie Good Will Hunting, where Will decides he's going to go after the girl. He gets in his car, he drives to the West Coast. We don't know if things are going to work out, but the point is, he's giving it a try. Another good example of that is Schindler's List by Thomas Keneally. After he's saved all the Jewish people that worked for him and he has to flee because he's going to be prosecuted as a war criminal, we don't know if he's caught. We don't know if he's brought to trial. All we know is that he saved the people that worked for him and he left. And that was it. So I did go online to the writers groups I belong to, and I did pose the question, what do you concern yourself with when you're trying to come up with the perfect ending for what you're writing? Writer Nick Tello said closure is most important to him, especially when it ties up all the hooks that you've created in your story. Another writer, Lizette Gonzalez, compared it to either sewing or weaving. Ideally, all threads come neatly tied up and trimmed, no loose threads, polished furnishings everywhere, and hopefully an open window for new adventures, ideally, of course. Another writer, Earl Dingman, he said he comes up with the ending first. It has to do with why I'm writing the book. I always have a reason for writing it. I devise the main challenge or conflict or battle, or at least an outline of it. Then I devise the resolve or the ending, and then I write about those two parts. So that'll take care of the first three styles of endings that you could have for your story. Just remember, regardless of what ending you pick, just make sure it's natural and organic, and maybe even tease them, and your reader will be satisfied. We'll have 3 more endings for you next week, and then the last 3 the week after that. So this is Ben Farrell for Benn Farrell Freelance. Thanks for hanging out with me.
It's been 2 months, guys. It's time for a new contest. Come on.
Yeah, so we gotta have 3-sentence stories sent our way once again for the next 2 months. Tell us your 3-sentence stories to go with this photo.
I know, guys, that was a pretty crazy photo.
So get those 3-sentence stories in. If your name is pulled out of our drawing, then you'll win a free copy of one of my stage plays.
And this stage play that we are doing is Morning News.
Morning News. It's a play about small town news, and you can learn more about it by going to benfarrellwriter.com.
So stay safe and keep watching our video. Bye.